Okay, wow. A million AC units in 88 days. And we're talking about India here. This Voltas deep dive is already heating up and we're just getting started.
It's impressive, right? This first quarter 2025 investor presentation is hot off the press, and it tells quite a story about Voltas.
Yeah, 70 years in the business, a giant, and a 21.2% market share in room ACs as of July 2024. They're not just keeping up, they're thriving.
Exactly. They're tapping into a market that's only getting hotter, literally, with the demand for cooling solutions skyrocketing.
And it's not just about ACs anymore, right? I'm seeing refrigerators, washing machines, even infrastructure projects in this presentation.
Mhm.
This is a company with its fingers in a lot of pies.
They've definitely diversified, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, they're pioneers. We're talking about the company that installed India's very first room AC back in 1954.
Wow, 1954. Talk about being ahead of the curve. But that makes you wonder, was it just good timing or were they visionaries?
Probably a bit of both. It takes more than just being in the right place at the right time. You've got to have the foresight to adapt and evolve, and Voltus has consistently done that.
Speaking of evolution, let's break down their current business segments. They've got a few outlined in this presentation, don't they?
They do. The Unitary Products Business Group, UPBG for short, is where you'll find those ACs we were talking about, along with air coolers and commercial refrigerators.
Right, and then there's the commercial air conditioning segment, which I'm guessing focuses on larger scale systems.
Exactly. Think big office buildings, industrial complexes, that sort of thing. They're handling the big cooling needs there.
And then there's Voltas Beko, their joint venture with Arcelec AS. Home appliances are the name of the game there, am I right?
You are. Refrigerators, washing machines, the works. It's interesting to see them partnering up like that, tapping into different areas of expertise.
Partnerships are huge these days, especially in a global market. It's all about leveraging those strengths. But Voltas isn't shying away from going it alone in some areas, are they? They've got a whole division dedicated to infrastructure solutions.
Now that's where their engineering muscle really comes into play. We're talking MEP, HVAC, even water infrastructure projects. They're involved in some seriously big projects.
Wow, from keeping your home cool to building a nation's infrastructure. It seems like there's no limit to what they do.
Yeah.
And they're going global too, right? There's an International Operations Business Group, the IOBG.
That's right. They're taking their expertise international, tackling those big infrastructure projects on a global scale. It's ambitious, but from what I'm seeing in this presentation, they're not afraid of a challenge.
And then you've got the Textile Machinery Division and the Mining and Construction Equipment segment. Those are a bit off the beaten path, aren't they?
They are, but every business has its niche. We might circle back to those later, but for now, let's focus on the big players. It's clear that Voltas is a complex and multifaceted company.
No kidding. And speaking of complex, let's dig into their performance for the first quarter of fiscal year 2025. The UPBG seems to be the star of the show, wouldn't you say? A million AC units in record time, that's huge.
It's definitely a headline grabber, and it speaks volumes about the demand for cooling solutions in India. They've even had to open new plants just to keep up.
So their strategy for the Unitary Products Business Group is clearly working. But what about their other segments? Are they seeing the same level of success?
Well, while maybe not as explosive as the UPBG, the other segments are definitely holding their own. Commercial air conditioning, for example, is anticipating margin improvements in the coming quarters.
That's good to hear. Steady growth is still growth. What about their joint venture Voltas Beko? How's that playing out?
Voltas Beko is showing a lot of promise. They're seeing strong sales growth, especially in their washing machine and refrigerator lines, pushing them closer to that crucial EBITDA break-even point.
EBITDA break even. For those of us who don't speak fluent finance, what does that actually mean?
Sure, happy to clarify. EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Basically, it's a way to measure a company's core operating profitability. Reaching EBITDA break-even means they're making enough from their operations to cover their operating expenses without factoring in things like interest or taxes.
So a positive sign for Voltas Beko. It sounds like they're on the right track.
Absolutely. It means their core business is becoming profitable, which is essential for long-term success.
So Voltas Beko is ticking along nicely. Now, their infrastructure solutions segment caught my eye. That 4,769 crore order book is massive. What's fueling that kind of growth?
It's a perfect storm in a way. India is pouring money into infrastructure development, creating a huge appetite for the kind of large-scale projects that Voltas excels at.
Right, so they're in the right place at the right time with the right expertise. And this international push, their IOBG, they're not just dipping their toes in the water either, are they?
Not at all. Their IOBG has a 2,734 crore order book. They're winning contracts globally, although there's mention of potential delays in arbitration proceeds, something to keep an eye on.
Delays. Oh, that doesn't sound ideal. What's the deal with that?
It's not uncommon in international projects, especially those with complex contracts. It's not necessarily a red flag, but definitely something investors will want to keep tabs on.
Okay, fair enough. Now let's talk numbers, the nitty-gritty. This presentation is a bit of a data overload, even for someone like me who enjoys digging into this stuff.
I hear you. There's a lot to unpack here.
So, cut to the chase. What are the key financial takeaways for those of us who aren't financial wizards?
Sometimes the simplest numbers tell the most powerful story. Voltas is experiencing robust revenue growth year on year, driven largely by their unitary cooling segment.
Those AC sales, right? It's no surprise given the climate, I suppose.
Exactly. But here's the kicker. They're not just growing, they're growing profitably. Their profit margins are looking very healthy.
Healthy margins, music to an investor's ears. What's the secret sauce?
It's a combination of factors. Efficient operations, strong brand recognition, and a diversified portfolio all play a part. Plus, remember that impressive order backlog? That's a very positive sign for future revenue streams.
So they have the momentum, the profitability, and a bright future, at least based on these numbers. But we need to zoom out a bit, right? Consider the bigger picture, the economic context.
You're spot on. Voltas isn't operating in a vacuum. Rising temperatures in India are undoubtedly a factor driving demand for cooling solutions.
Talk about a built-in market advantage. Although their energy-efficient models probably give them an edge too, right?
Absolutely. They're ahead of the curve on that front, aligning with government initiatives and consumer demand for sustainability. It's a smart move.
But they're not the only players in the game. Who are they up against in this market?
Oh, it's a competitive landscape, with both domestic and international players vying for a piece of the pie. You've got Blue Star, Daikin, LG, to name a few.
So how does Voltas stand out? What makes them unique?
Their history of innovation is a big factor. Remember we talked about them installing India's first room AC? Well, they didn't rest on their laurels. They were also the first to introduce the all-season air conditioner and the indigenously built energy-efficient split AC.
So they're pioneers, constantly innovating and pushing the boundaries.
Exactly. And that's not all. They have impressive manufacturing capabilities thanks to strategic investments in building and expanding their production facilities.
Their Make in India focus probably helps too, right? Aligning with government initiatives and all that.
It does. It strengthens their position domestically and allows them to manage costs more effectively.
It's all coming together now. Okay, before we get too sidetracked, I want to circle back to the financials for a moment. The presentation highlights their consolidated profit and loss statement.
Right, their consolidated P&L. It gives us a comprehensive overview of their financial performance. Their total income for Q1 FY25 was 5,001.27 crores, significantly higher than the 257.30 crores they reported during the same period last year.
Wow, that's a significant jump. Those AC sales really are something else.
They play a major role for sure. But we shouldn't discount the contributions from their other segments. Their engineering projects and product segments have shown impressive growth as well.
Right, it's a team effort. But revenue is only part of the story. What about their expenses? Have those increased proportionally? So more money coming in is always good, but what about their expenses? Are they managing those effectively as well?
That's the key to sustainable growth, isn't it? And it seems Voltas is doing a commendable job on that front.
Really? So even though their revenue has increased, their expenses haven't spiraled out of control?
Right. They've managed to keep things in check. Their cost of goods sold, for instance, has increased, but at a manageable rate.
That's good to hear. Efficiency is crucial, especially in today's volatile market.
Absolutely. And it seems to be one of Voltas's strengths. They've implemented cost optimization measures throughout their operations, from procurement to manufacturing to logistics.
So they're streamlining their processes, becoming leaner and more efficient?
Exactly. And that focus on efficiency is reflected in their bottom line. Speaking of which, their profit before tax for Q1 FY25 is reported as 451.52 crores.
Okay, 451.52 crores. That sounds impressive. But help me put that into context. Is that a good number?
It's a very healthy figure, especially when you consider everything that goes into calculating it. That's their earnings after accounting for all expenses, operating costs, depreciation, financial costs, the whole shebang.
So they're not just making money, they're making a profit. But how do they stack up against their competitors?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? While this presentation doesn't offer a direct comparison, it does highlight that Voltas has consistently maintained healthy profit margins.
Consistent profitability, that's the sweet spot, isn't it?
It certainly is. It speaks to the strength of their business model and their ability to navigate market challenges effectively.
Okay, so they're profitable, they're efficient, they're innovating. What could possibly go wrong, right?
Well, it's always wise to be aware of potential headwinds. The Indian economy, like any economy, faces its share of uncertainties, inflation, interest rates, government policies. These can all impact consumer behavior.
So even a giant like Voltas isn't completely immune to external pressures.
That's the reality of the business world, unfortunately. But Voltas seems well prepared to weather potential storms. Their diversified business model provides a level of resilience. They're not overly reliant on any single product or market.
That diversification acts as a buffer then, a safety net.
Precisely. And there's another factor to consider, one that's gaining increasing importance for investors these days: ESG.
ESG, you mean environmental, social, and governance.
Exactly. Investors are becoming more discerning. They're not just looking at financial performance anymore. They want to see companies that are aligned with their values, companies that are making a positive impact.
So it's not just about profits, it's about purpose as well. How does Voltas measure up in that regard?
They're making a conscious effort, that's for sure. This presentation highlights their ESG initiatives, particularly in the areas of energy efficiency, water conservation, and community development.
So they're walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
To a large extent, yes. There's always room for improvement, of course, but their commitment to sustainability is evident.
It's a journey, right? A continuous process of improvement.
Absolutely. But it's clear that Voltas is on the right path. They're demonstrating a commitment to sustainability alongside their strong financial performance and ambitious growth strategy.
It's a powerful combination for sure.
It certainly is, and it paints a very optimistic picture for Voltas's future, wouldn't you say?
I'd say so. They've got all the right ingredients for long-term success. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of Voltas.
It has. Their story is a testament to the power of innovation, strategic planning, and adaptability.
Exactly. From humble beginnings installing India's first room AC to becoming a global player in the cooling and engineering solution space, Voltas has certainly come a long way.
And from the looks of it, they're just getting started.
To our listeners, we hope this deep dive has provided you with valuable insights into Voltas's operations, their financials, and their vision for the future.
It's always a pleasure to delve into these complex topics and make them accessible and engaging.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, and we believe in empowering our listeners to make informed decisions. That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Join us next time as we unpack another fascinating company and explore the forces shaping the business landscape. Until then, keep those brains engaged, and we'll see you soon.